Good morning, YouTubers. This is certainly not going to be on the TikTok. So it's a little heavy this morning, heavy flow. And I was like, let me do, because this is the only time I'm going to have today, because it's going to be very busy today. But Sherry and I went to breakfast early, and there was a homeless lady out sleeping on my front swing, and she had a baby. Well, it's like a toddler, and my inside, my heart was breaking, but on the outside, I was like, she's like, can you not film me? I'm like, nope, I have to. It's like, because otherwise they won't respond. In fact, she got a little lippy with me at the end when I was like, don't come back, to make sure she knows, don't come back. So, but it's just heartbreaking. So, but this morning we went to breakfast, and we'd like to go to Chase's Diner, especially on Tuesday, go see Sophie. And she's the one that runs the White Lotus. What is it, White Lotus? Mm-hmm. Something. I'll put a link to her on the Instagram. They just moved to their new spot. So if you want to take classes if you want to basically pay a hot chick to kick her ass, then she's the girl to talk to. And she'll kick your ass if that's what you want. But was there somebody there?
No.
Oh.
Somebody tagged.
Oh. But let's see. Oh, it was funny. So Chase's Diner is like I don't want to say 50s diner, but it's like, an old-timey diner where they sort of reminisce on, they play music from the 50s and 60s. And one of the songs that came on was, it's the one about school spirit from the Beach Boys. And they start saying, rah, 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 sisk, boom, bah. And it brought up some feelings. So I remember, and I talked to Sherry about this, was basically both her parents were high school dropouts, and both my parents were high school dropouts. And my dad was getting in fights with his dad, and when he was 16, they fudged his birth certificate and got him into the Army, and he was out of there. My dad said that he did get his GED, but I was like, I don't think so. So same with my mom. My mom got pregnant at 16, and she said she did it too. But you got to think about, like, now most of you are parents, and you're like, what are the lies that you tell to your children so that they don't repeat the same mistakes you did? You know what I mean? So, but it was just this weird thing, because that song came on, and it reminds me of my mother when she was singing along with that song one time, and we were like, first of all, like as kids in the 80s, we were like, sure, Beach Boys, sun-kissed commercials. Like I remember my dad was singing along to Good Vibrations, and I was like, oh, my dad watches TV. He watches the sun-kissed commercial. No, he just remembers the song when it originally came out, and I'm the dummy. So, but my mother was listening to the song from the Beach Boys, and she was remembering poodle skirts and tight sweaters and doing a big sea jump because she was a cheerleader, and it was at that moment that I realized, this bitch, she was a high school cheerleader. She's the cunts that are mean to me. And yeah, she grew up and she got knocked up and had a bunch of kids and became a Mormon, and then was my mom. But I realized later that that's one of the reasons why mostly I don't like people that are, again, dumb and bossy. I have a huge problem with that. But it was again, it was interesting to hear Sherry's stories about her parents, and then of course my stories about my parents and things like that. But one of the things that came up was, so you got to remember, I was raised as a Mormon, and my dad was a truck driver, long haul, and he had 5 kids at home, and so we didn't go out a lot, like, ever. And like well, like when the Wiz would come on, usually around, I guess, October, because I guess CBS thought it was like, I don't know, even though it's in the movie, it's a Christmas movie, but that was like I think because it was scary for us kids to watch, especially that subway scene where all the subway pillars become like monsters and stuff like that, which is it's a mirror of the Wizard of Oz part where the trees become angry or whatever. But that was really scary for us. But that was like the biggest show that we would watch and it was on television. And so anyways, we went out to see Grease, because my parents were like big Grease fans. And also, you know, you find out, you know, it's not just your parents, it's all old people like watching stuff that romanticizes their past. So like when George Clooney's movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out, Sherry and I were like the youngest people in the audience. Also, it was because I could go to the movies in the middle of the day, and it was not a big deal. But so anyways, I remember telling Sherry, I said there was that moment where they sing Beauty School Dropout, and as a young boy, that was like the best part of the movie, because it was just filled with hot chicks, and they were exotic because they all had like pink hair or blue hair or whatever it was, and the whole thing was pink. And of course, you know, pink was very feminine, especially in that era, and it was just a whole big thing. And I just remember really liking that, but not knowing why. And and then I was telling Sherry about how I think it was like one of the first or second days of kindergarten. My kindergarten teacher, Miss LaRosque, was very hot, or I should say Mrs. LaRosque. I think she was married at the time too. But, or no, maybe, yeah, no, she wasn't married yet. She was Miss LaRosque, because we also had Miss Easley, who ended up being my 6th grade teacher. And she was a miss because she had never been married. She had a big beehive hairdo, and she was total lesbian. But, you know, back then we didn't know. And I remember Miss Easley actually became, because she was kind of a heavyset chick, she played Santa Claus. And Miss LaRosque wore these like thigh-high boots and was looking super sexy, and she jumped on Miss Easley's lap. And of course, now I understand why that was a joke, why that was super interesting. But I was telling Sherry about how even as a kid, I remember giving Miss LaRosque a hug and just burying my face in her bush, and knowing that as a little kid I could get away with it. And then I sort of looked at that objectively. I'm like, wow, was I like a 5-year-old rapist? Like, that is pretty horrible. But no. I was just as a young kid and testing my boundaries and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, you can't even do that at a strip club now. So maybe at some bus stop in Phoenix, but not at a strip club. But hang on, let me pause real quick. Oh yeah, so no, I was asking Sherry if she wanted to talk about anything else, and she's like, no, this idiot's just really impatient. I sort of enjoy driving Sherry to her appointment up here in Scottsdale, and it's always like, it's not Teslas, but it's typically BMWs and Mercedes that get really upset that I'm not on the bumper of the person in front of me. And I'm like, go for it, go get around me. Like, where are you going? You're not going anywhere. So I just think it's funny how mad people get. Not that I'm provoking them on purpose. I don't provoke them. I tell you what though, that one guy, see, I'm seeing taillights already, and so I just kind of, I hear my dad in my head teaching me how to drive when I was 12.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Tesla was going to try to get in front of you.
Yeah, like I'm at 138,000 miles on this car, and I still have not had the brakes changed. And that's the way you should. That's the way it should be. If you know how to engine brake and just chill the fuck out. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. I was having dreams about Vegas and about the times that I went to CES. and I wanted to talk to you guys about that. So about now is the time. If you want to go to CES, now's when you should be planning. It's typically in early January, and it should be full force. Last year was not that big. I didn't see a lot of advertisements for it, but this year it should be full force, because now it's the weirdest thing how everybody acts like COVID never happened. Especially with all the stuff coming out about Fauci, how he's been planning a pandemic to get rich for like 20 years. So, I mean, it's horrible, but, you know, every war that we've ever had was always, created, and taken advantage of. It was never by accident. But, so anyways, Vegas. So, one of my most memorable trips was going with Sergey Klypin. Forget Sergey had a amp repair business out of Las Cruces, and I guess he ordered some plugs for me off of eBay, and that's how we connected. And then, you know, of course, he would resell the plugs because he had customers there, you know, that were like, I don't want to say vulnerable, but like, you know, it's easy to upsell somebody when they have your amp. But I made friends with Sergey, and he's like, I didn't realize he was so cheap, because he was like, hey, let's meet up in Vegas and share a room in a car. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I didn't want to pay full price for a car and all that kind of stuff. And so, but we stayed at the Lady Luck down there on the strip, the old strip. And it was terrible. It was just horrible. And I remember Sergey getting up in the middle of the night, and I just looked over, and he was wearing tidy whities, but they were like, they had super giant holes in them. You know, it was just like cotton ball and a piece of string. And I don't know. I was like, in my mind, I was telling myself like, oh, he's a single guy. You know, like, I like my brother, who is really just an idiot. And I told you about him. He used to buy used underwear at garage sales, and then he would take them home and boil them to sterilize them. Why don't you just buy new panties, Ty? They're cheap. I'll buy you some. Jesus Christ, I'll buy you some every year. So anyways, that was the first red flag of being with Sergey. However, Sergey got me meetings with some of the guys that I didn't know I wanted to meet, but I ended up meeting, which was Dan Wiggins of Adire Audio. I guess Sergey was doing well. There was a relationship between Adire, Dan Wiggins, and RE Audio, because I guess Dan was doing some of the design work for RE Audio. They did their Dan did their XXX woofer, and also I think something else. But anyways, they used XBL, which used a really thick top plate, and it made the woofer look really impressive and all that kind of stuff. But and I think the XXX was equal to the Maelstrom, I think it was called. It was the 3-inch coil version, but there were some Brahmas too that were 3-inch coil back in the day, version 1, 2, and 3, I think, if I remember right. It was version 4 that they had started to leverage the brand and make it shit. And if anybody wants some version 4 motors, I have them. I think I have a couple, but they're not great. I don't recommend them. But so anyways, we stayed at the Lady Luck, and it was funny, back to aggravating people here in traffic. I'm kind of aware that, what's the word? I could be perceived as antagonistic, but not enough for me to care. So I don't care, and also like why am I? You know, I don't need to be bullied by people in traffic, and that's kind of a dick move for people to do that. And they go, "Well, you're being a dick," and I go, "Not really." I'm like, "This is public. This is." I've seen people do worse, like, but I'm not like super rude. So, but some people perceive me that way, and I just allow them to have their opinion. But see, I did pretty good. I was pretty good. So, Mama's ovaries are clinging to the insides. So anyways, so apparently I drove Sergey crazy with some of my antics, and but he got me to meet Dan Wiggins, and so I made that connection, and that's what helped get me that when he sold the brand to Perry up at Hemp Acoustics in Canada, who ended up stealing everybody's seed money and then running back to Canada, and I was able to buy a bunch of that closeout stuff there in the factory in Washington, and then Dan took off to China. He's like, fuck this place, fuck you guys. He's like, I'm gonna go do OEM for rich people. And let's see, so that got me to meet Dan Wiggins, but he Sergey got me to meet the guys at RE. So I got to meet Scott, I got to meet Mark, and of course their builder, David Moore, of now PSI fame and fixmyspeaker.com. And I had talked to David a couple times, and there was some sort of joke, I forget, like David thought I was selling heroin or something, and I think David was making a joke, but I don't think he expected me to like improv. And so I went along with it. It was hilarious to hear him talk about it, because he goes, I was just kidding. And I go, I was just kidding too, but I thought it would be fun to play along. And he's like, yeah, it was funny. So, but yeah, I got to meet David Moore, and the biggest thing was seeing RE audio like in the factory, and some of the things that I saw, like when I was there, they, like, if you remember, their motors were like chrome plated, and they had gotten a batch of motors from China that had the chrome was flaking off, and they had to send the whole thing back to get, retreated and processed. And I was like, ooh, that's terrible. And then I got to see a couple other secrets, but that's where so anyways, later that night, Sergey, well, because we were there to go to CES, and so we spent that day, I think that was on Friday. Yeah, that was on Friday. We went to go see people that Sergey wanted to connect with, and they were his clients already, and he just wanted to introduce me around. And at the time I was just selling plugs on eBay, and but I was doing well enough that I could start venturing into other things. And I don't have any specialized education like Sergey did. Sergey, I think, was both his parents were Russian scientists working there at Los Alamos in New Mexico, and he went to college and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if he went to college to repair amps, but he went to college, and I did not. So I was already kind of like one step down, peasant. which his feelings later came out about me, because I was like too successful to just be a peasant. It was hilarious. But anyways, so that night we decided to go to the MGM and hang out and do some gambling. And he was supposed to meet somebody, but they ended up flaking or whatever. And then I was able to get up, I think about $800 or $900 on blackjack, and that drove him crazy. And I ended up going next door to, at the time, the M&M store was next door. And so I was like, well, let me go spend this money a little bit on Sherry. And I went and bought her the peanut M&M guy, because she's like, he reminds me of you because you got a peanut head. I'm like, okay, that's fine. All right, I gotta go say bye, Sherry. So yeah, the peanut M&M reminds Sherry of me, because he's kind of funny. That's a good word. He's kind of dumb and dopey in the commercials, but I don't know, I took it as a compliment. So anyways, I went and got her the yellow M&M coffee mug, and then I went to the restroom, and for some reason while I was peeing, I relaxed and I dropped it, and I had to go buy her another one. So I bought her another one, went back to the tables, and Sergey, I think, was down like $200 or something like that, and he was getting real pissed off. And I showed back up, and of course the table changed. And so it's so funny to see the way that people, they're like, no, the cards are different. The dynamics are different. It's like, okay, whatever. Like we're playing like 6-deck blackjack with a $5 minimum. Like this is entertainment. Nobody's here to really win. But like I was hitting on 18 and shit like that. And then when I made out, they were like, no, they're like, no, you're not supposed to win. I was like, well, again, I was just having fun. I was just, whatever. So I think we go home and because I had the car, I rented the car. So I went home and I think he went and hung out with some other friends, and I tried to get some sleep because I wanted to see a bunch of vendors the next day on Saturday. And oh my God, you could smell cigarette smoke on every floor, even though we picked a non-smoking room. And then somebody was fucking a hooker next door, and they were just banging the headboard next door. And it was just, I'm glad the Lady Luck is gone because it was a really shitty hotel. And but my advice, well, let me finish up the story. So anyways, I wake up the next day and I go see my vendors, and I think that was about it as far as, because then we sort of like, he was, at the time that the internet wasn't really, this was like in 05, 06, January of 06. And so the internet wasn't quite, the way it is now with our phones and stuff like that. And so we actually had to go to an internet cafe, which I think was at the Sands. Yeah, it was like some camel jockey. I mean, that's what it was called. It was like the Camel Jockey Cafe or something like that. But they had Sergey liked it because they had a really cheap internet cafe there, and so we went there. He was checking his mail and stuff like that, and I think Sergey was just mad that I had found a niche and was exploiting it very well, and he was actually doing real work and fixing amps. And as many people know, Sergey, if he didn't like you or if he just didn't feel great, he would just steal your amplifier. Because he definitely stole plenty of amplifiers from me. And but again, it was like jealousy, because again, I lived in Phoenix. I lived in East Valley, and I remember I met him at a sound off down in Tucson, because it was like the in-between point, and I think he had sponsored some people because he was sponsored through RE, or he was an RE dealer, and he was there to support some of his people that were on his team or whatever. And so we met up, and I had this chuck bed full of Diamond Audio amps that I basically got for free because I just dug them out of the trash. And I think he only gave me like 3 or 4 that he fixed, and then the rest he just kept. So I guess he got the last laugh or whatever. So, but no, Sergey's just a miserable little person, very vindictive, very childish, very spoiled, rotten kind of. Well, if you've ever worked with him or dealt with him, I'm sure you would figure that out pretty quick. He also, the other red flag was when I went to Las Cruces, and I brought Sherry, just because we were thinking about moving there. It was like, it was affordable at the time, and I was looking for like somebody to have synergy with. I needed more people on my team, and I knew that I could sell, and he kind of needed a sales guy. And what's funny is people always think of a sales guy as kind of creepy, and they are, believe me. I've seen plenty of weird middle-aged men with Corvettes. They're like, oh, your sales is where it's at, and you're like, oh, good Lord. But but there was always sort of contempt for me at all times, and I didn't know my place. But at breakfast this morning, that's what brought up. Well, no, my dream this morning about the weird juxtaposition of what is Vegas. But so anyways, I didn't want to have the story where I just trashed Sergey. those were just my experiences. Those were my observations. Oh, that's what I was going to finish was Sherry and I went to Las Cruces to kind of, look for real estate and also just to get to know Sergey a little bit better. And he took us to some fancy place in New Mexico where like Billy the Kid across the street got jailed or something. Anyways, it was like probably a $50, $60 tab, and he doesn't tip. He doesn't feel that he needs to tip. If anybody does that, run away. So they are not a good person, and they are certainly not going to bring. They're not going to contribute to the relationship. So, and if that's how they treat the quote unquote little people, that's how they're going to treat you. So, but so anyways, I don't want to talk about Sergey anymore. But Vegas. So if you're planning on going to CES, if you've never gone, it's good to go at least once. Make sure that you have plenty of money with you. I recommend staying. And again, if you reserve it now, it's actually not too bad. There's a lot you'll see them on some travel website or whatever about the different variations in price. I recommend you guys, like you go with a group of guys, which is always better than going alone. And Vegas is good for debauchery, which is what they advertise it as. I'm not a debauchery kind of guy. That's what Mexico is for. And I don't go to Mexico anymore. And Vegas is everything that they say it is, but way more sad than you realize. So I don't like it. I think it's polluted. There's a lot of traffic. The locals are completely insane. Everybody is basically dead inside. The only way that you get access to the Vegas that they advertise is if you have lots and lots of money, you're a celebrity, and you're there to just, pave the way. And what was it? As far as CES goes, you want to make your reservations now, and then they'll confirm in the fall, and they'll ask, hey, do you need any more badges? And when I was going, it was technically free. You just have to sign up, and it helps if you give them a bunch of, it doesn't matter if it's fake or not, information about your brand and your store and all this kind of stuff. Even if you don't have a store, even if you just work from home, it's fine. And then the last time I went, they were having badges where they would have a barcode, and I'm sure they do an RFID version now to make it seem like it's a tech mecca, and it's not. It's just a bunch of salespeople trying to get their fangs into you and not have to pay for advertising. So, but remember that it's very, very expensive to have a booth there, and a lot of the people that I deal with don't even go anymore because it's a waste. It's a waste of time and money. But again, if you want to don't go for just one reason. Go for many reasons, and you may even want to go for a week because there's just so much touristy shit to see. And then they also do the porn convention at the same time. Oh, that's what we did on Sunday. Was I think I still have footage. Because I did well at the blackjack table, and Sergey was pissed off about it, and I tried to make it up to him by paying his way in, and this was in 2006, and it was still $90 to get into the porn convention, and I paid his way, and he got mad because he felt like I was showing off when really I was just you don't want to go to the porn convention by yourself. But I got to meet Kelly Madison and her husband and what's her name, some other big busty stars that I liked, and that was actually much more fulfilling than as far as a fan goes, or geeking out that you see your favorite rather than seeing your favorite brands. Like I remember going to the Rockford Fosgate booth, and it was just a bunch of old chicks not that I wanted to go see hot chicks, but it was nice to go see some hot chick with like pasties on and showing, which I don't know if they would even do that now. Like that's what kind of makes it boring. And also more booths from China, which is really expensive for them to do, to fly all their shit over to set up a booth and do Chinese, vendors or whatever, stuff like that to attract you. But they like to go and gamble. Oh my God, Chinese love gambling. But that was the only gambling that I did on that trip. And then if you like to gamble, just limit yourself. And yes, there is free booze, but I remember we were at the blackjack table and I asked for water, which is always a what's the word? It's not a priority for the waitresses, because the water is free too, right? And the drinks are free, but they expect a nice tip. And I asked for a water, and they sort of frown upon that because they want to see you get loose. They want to see you get basically empty your wallet. And it was this snotty black girl that was she was cute, and you would not see her today. She would be on OnlyFans at home making $500 to $1,000 a day. But she was really kind of mean to me, and I did not like that. And then I think I tipped her $1, and she got really mad and said something about that. And I was just like, I'm here winning. Can you give me some water? I was super thirsty. But anyways, that's another thing to watch out for, is everybody expects to be tipped rather than just providing you service and being thankful, because from their perspective, there's a lot of losers that show up, and a lot of losers that Vegas lets anybody go there. It's not for the exclusive people, but again, they try to play the hot chick game where make you feel bad, make you feel guilty, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel guilty, because again, that could be a manipulation game. And so I'm just oh, that's your problem, that's not my problem. But so let's see. Yeah, make reservations now. Bring a bunch of people so that you can afford a suite, something with 4 or 5 beds, or they can augment it, there's a couch and all that kind of stuff. Most of the really good meetings or booths, I don't want to say booth, but of what the vendors use are actually in the hotels. So the hotel will, especially the high-end audio guys, they'll rent a suite at whatever hotel. Again, all the famous ones. And then sometimes they're even by appointment only, because they don't want a bunch of people in there rushing in and then stealing shit and all that kind of stuff. The guys are, again, Vegas is for trash. Vegas is not luxurious. Vegas is dirty. There's a lot of pollution. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of just driving billboards, diesel trucks, little diesel trucks driving around with a video billboard advertising, and they're not going anywhere. They're just going in a circle to advertise, to get eyeballs, and it's a complete waste of fuel, and it's gross, and that's everywhere. It's not just one place. And then because it's CES and it's busy, there's even more advertising. I think when I was there was a campaign to advertise Bluetooth, because at the time it was a big deal. And they had 6 or 8 people running around like a little centipede together in blue outfits, and they were all they'd come up to you and they got to say something to you, and then they go, Bluetooth, Bluetooth, Bluetooth. That's all they would say. But that was Bluetooth's campaign to be more accepted as a standard on computer boards. It's funny, is I really don't know. I've never really used Bluetooth on a PC, even though that's, I can see where it can be useful. But I've always used USB in order to move data or even just charge my phone. So yeah, USB is much more popular than Bluetooth. But in the car, of course, that's where I use it. So anyways, CES. So it's very, very, it's really oversized now. And they make such a big deal about it. And again, most of the vendors that are going to be there now are from Asia because they're trying to get a foothold into the market. And because there's such a delay on when they can afford it versus when there's spots available, and when they have enough money to sacrifice one worker or one salesperson or two salespeople to travel all the way to China and set the booth up, again, a week in advance and all that kind of stuff. But most American companies realize it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money, and they could spend that week or week and a half, however long they're there, home in production and doing sales that way. It's not really an effective advertising device anymore, especially for American companies. For Asian companies, I'm sure they still think that it's worth it, and then that's why those people go. And don't be shocked if there's a language barrier and you have to figure out and do something on Google Translate or something like that in order to talk to vendors. Really, if you're a serious person wanting to look for a vendor, just go on Alibaba. Don't go to CES. Now, if you like debauchery and you want to go to the adults, now it's not the AVN Awards. The AVN Awards are not. Those are pretty exclusive. Like, they don't let just the public go to that. That's, I think, invite only, or it's a very large buy-in. Like, you have to be basically a vendor to do that. And I don't really recommend it, but again, debauchery, and because it's Vegas, like, there's going to be a huge price tag. So only go, like, if you already sell drugs at home and you have that kind of money, or something like that. Otherwise, if you're just like me, I was just like broke. Like, I think I flew there. Yeah, I've flown there twice on 2 occasions, and then the other 2 occasions I drove, because it's like 6 hours from here. And I went there one time. The last time I went alone, and I finally. The reason why I went alone was because I don't participate in the debauchery, and also because when you go with a partner, there's distractions, and you quickly find out what their priorities are, and that they don't give a shit about you, and that they want to do what they want to do. And so it may be better to split up. It may be better to go, hey, let's meet up at lunch, whatever. But everything is super expensive. $25 sandwiches and shit like that, and everything is constantly trying to just soak up as much money out of you before you leave. And it's really kind of for losers. I don't really recommend it. But if you still want to go, and you're like, I'll show you who's a loser, Patrick, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then after you get back, you're like, yeah, it is kind of for losers. Like, yeah, I know, I told you. So don't get mad. Just hear me out. But let's see what else. Yeah, make sure you go to the CES website. It should be like CES.org or something like that. Because that's they do a lot of basically money laundering and advertising for all the groups, for the technology groups, and you'd be surprised who you see there. You're like, wow, you sell whatever it is, and you're like, I didn't even know this was a product, and they're like, yeah, that's why I'm here promoting. And you're like, oh, okay. So again, it's there are other better ways to advertise and network than through CES, but if you want to do it for the experience, go for it. And let me see what else. Yeah, when I drove that one time by myself, I just went for the day. I think I just went on Saturday because that's the busiest day. And oh my God, I was so sore. There was a lot of walking. And I carried that stupid Phoenix Gold Letterman leather jacket around with me, because once you get inside, it's all warm. It's not even cold outside. It's still, it's like here. It's in the middle of the desert, so it's cold, but it's not that cold. It's like maybe have a second t-shirt on underneath. Let's see. Yeah, but so anyways, you want to plan it out as best you can, and just be ready to spend lots and lots of money. We're talking about thousands of dollars. Easy. Especially when, you know, like, people will walk all day long, and then they're like, oh yeah, let's go out to the clubs, blah blah blah, and then you have sex with some rando from New Zealand or whatever, and you're, this is New Zealand pussy's awesome, and it's like, you know, she's like a New Zealand 6, so that means she's a Southwest 7 or 8. Just, you know, for the exotic factor or things like that. But again, it depends on your motives, and depends on how serious you are about what you're there to do. There's plenty of places that you can just buy a ticket to and just, you know, fuck off. And again, I've never been super wealthy, and even when I was making good money, I was certainly not respected by my peers. And there were a lot of lessons learned. I'll say that. If you want to go and just learn a bunch of lessons, go for it. But like I said, if you're serious about business and about really succeeding, I do not recommend you go. Yeah, even I talked to Larry, and Cicada didn't even go. They didn't have a Cicada booth. They actually find more leverage, more effective advertising when they like go to Daytona and spring break and things like that. Somewhere where the booth is like way cheaper because it's all outside, and you know, it's literally just like like it's just roped off, you know, or however you have it or whatever, and you have a couple of displays, and then maybe you hire a couple of models or whatever to sign autographs. It depends on, you know, how much money you got to blow as a vendor. And again, you're there to sort of impress people, a lot of people that aren't buyers and aren't, they're just there for the distraction. They're just there for the pleasure of the whole thing. I don't find any of that stuff pleasurable. I don't like large crowds of people. I certainly don't like cigarette smoke. I remember as a kid, I think we were driving up to Tahoe to visit my brother, and my mom stopped in Vegas for the night, and we stayed in, forget the name of it. I'm sure it's not, I'm sure they wrecked it by now. Oh, the Fitzgerald. And the lady, the old lady, she had like a white afro, and the lady behind the counter at the desk was like a zombie, like literally like The Walking Dead. And that was when they had, like, you know, 99-cent steak and eggs, and then you go have that 99-cent. Oh yeah, Sergey and I did that too. That was quite an experience. Again, and at the time when I went with Sergey, it was like $3.99 steak and eggs, and you have it, and you're like, technically this is steak and eggs, but it is terrible. The service is terrible. It, like, you know, don't do that to yourself. You know, go to the buffet, go be a pig, you know, whatever. Pay the $25. Again, Vegas just is like the money sponge of the world, or America. It's just there to just sap all your resources, and then people are there just barely scraping by with all the suckers that they get. So, but oh, I did want to finish with I don't want to say good news, but if you are serious about speaker building and things like that, and you do want to go to a convention, the best one is in Hong Kong in October, and that is the Speaker Parts, basically the Asian CES. That is really the one to go to, because that's where you can really meet. It was funny, I talked to Dan Wiggins there in 06 about that convention, and he told me he went and he toured, and he says he was amazed to see how many shops where you look at their work, right? Because they do work for other brands and things like that. And they're there, they in person, they'll tell you all the work that they've done for all the brands. They're like, oh, we've done work for Kicker. We've done, you know, and they'll name off a bunch of brands that they've done for. And then you go to their factory, and their factory floor looks like that. It's just fucking dirt. And, you know, the workers are very young. But he was yeah, even Dan was like, you don't need to go. He's like, don't waste your time, because that, even at the time, like he's like minimum it'll cost you about $3,000. And I was like, ugh. Like, not that I didn't have $3,000, but just, it's a waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Don't. Just stay home, masturbate with your rubber vagina, and carry on. You'll be much more effective. Again, if I got an email the other day from Audio Express. For those not here in Phoenix, Audio Express is a publisher that publishes the Loudspeaker Cookbook. They also published Speaker Builder Magazine, Voice Coil, and the magazine Voice Coil is like the industry. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you guys was I've been downloading copies of Voice Coil magazine, and then what I'll do is I'll post them up to a Google Drive, and then you guys can download them and sample them and things like that. And then basically what you can do is then sign up. I don't know why they had such restrictions on that link that I posted. Like, I would think that they would want to get something out, but I think they just want to, again, they want something in exchange, and what they want in exchange is your numbers and your name, and they want to sell you as a potential John to all their pimps and things like that. So again, even if it's fake, even if you're just working from home, sign up for Voice Coil magazine. It's free to students. So just say you're a student or that you run a school or whatever, and that's fine. And you'll get a free subscription. But I wanted to show you a couple of issues of the magazine, just so you can kind of see if that's something you want to learn more about or read more about. Because they, again, even just being a student subscriber helps them with their subscriber numbers. And so that's why they're willing to give you the free, especially digital copies of the magazines. But they run the LIS, which is the Loudspeaker Industry Sourcebook. And that is basically the CES or the Hong Kong, I forget what the name of they call the Hong Kong one. But it puts you in touch with vendors. So, but also remember, when you're looking at those vendors and you're contacting them and all that kind of stuff, and you're seeing pictures of their work and all this kind of stuff, remember that both David Moore of PSI and me, Nobody Robot Underground, have both been in the Loudspeaker Industry Sourcebook, and as a vendor in that, and it doesn't cost you anything, you just sign up and do it. It does not get you the leads that you want. It is kind of a waste of time. The only leads that I got were very uptight weirdos that wanted very esoteric stuff, and they didn't have any money and they didn't want to pay for it. So that's the only people that ever contacted me about sourcing. Really, that's just a hard row. And in fact, consider this video part of that series that I was doing about if you want to order from Alibaba, and if you want to be a vendor and things like that, or if you want to just connect with Asia and find a vendor that can supply you. Again, it's better to do it that way. And even if you get ripped off, which I have, not through Alibaba, but just contacting vendors directly and then wiring them money and then getting nothing in return. It's just a slow process. I think you guys would all do better just, again, just reselling stuff that I import. So you don't have to think. I already have built-in margins. I'm already teaching you how to resell stuff and what price points you should be hitting, and also what things to say and what things to compare them to. So again, I'm all these videos are always like tales of experience and letting you know that the world is a shit show and is there to consume you. I got a call from a guy in Hawaii, there in Honolulu, and it was good to talk to him. And one of the things he was complimenting me about was he's like, I really like where you're like walking through the shop and then like your thoughts go from like, you'll start the video off with one thing. Like I started the video off talking about the homeless lady that was sleeping on the couch on the swing this morning. And then it leads to, you know, prostitutes and porn stars. And, you know, don't waste your money on CES, that kind of thing. But he was complimenting me on that. And I said, well, that's where ADHD pays off. And I'm glad it pays off for you. And just so you know, a lot of these videos, it's not necessarily ramblings, even though some people make comments about that. And that's a little hurtful, hurts my feelings. But again, one of my mentors has always been Howard Stern. And I love hearing him talk about the process that's going on in his head when he's got a caller on the phone, when he's got somebody loaded up on the board that he's ready to bring in, and sort of the on-the-fly planning that he's going through. Like he's constantly scanning his brain and putting himself in an objective point of view of thinking, will my viewers or will my listeners appreciate this? Is this what they're interested in? And so that's what actually happens whenever I'm walking around the shop and telling you stuff. It's basically stuff that I would be interested in, that I know you guys are in that level of the hierarchy at, because if you're watching these videos, you're probably still a consumer. And again, I'm trying to filter out the consumers from the resellers. The resellers are the ones that are going to be superstars. You're the one that's going to have the demo truck. You're the one that's going to have whatever. You're going to be a pussy magnet. The guys that just want to consume and try to have that Steve Mead lifestyle, very difficult. You have to, in order to afford something like that, you have to have some sort of, I don't want to say hustle or scam, but you got to have some sort of other source of income that is quite lucrative and gives you enough time to even be able to do that. Or worse, which is even more expensive, is to pay a shop or somebody else to do it for you. Ricky in Brooklyn is a good example of that. He's a DoD contractor. He's a civilian, but he's former military, and he does contracting for the military, and they pay him very, very well. The problem is that he has to be away from his family like all the time. He's on the other side of the globe, and I do my best to try to support him, and I feel bad for him because he has to lean on vendors, you know, in his area to do the work without being supervised, and not there to really kind of instruct them and help guide them on the stuff that he needs and the stuff that he wants. So that's really difficult for him too. And again, I understand that a lot of these things are dreams, and I want you to understand that the dream means nothing to everyone else. Okay? Think about that for a second. Your dream means nothing to everyone else. Everyone else has their own dreams. Okay? So they don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about yours. And so, and not that that's a sad thing, and not that you should even judge that and judge other people for thinking that. That's just the way it is. And so the quicker that you sort of accept that and move on, the quicker you realize that your future and your goals and your dreams are up to you. And it requires you to sacrifice. It requires you to work extra. It requires you to be, you know, tenacious about your foresight. Let those big words sink in. It's up to, if it is to be, is up to me, is really the saying that you should probably have. And I'll take this back to I'll bring this back around to my mother, who, she's actually the one that said that to me. I remember complaining about stereo shops being expensive, and, you know, again, I don't like dumb, bossy people. And she was like, shit or get off the pot. She was like annoyed with me. And she's like, let me put that in another way. And then that's when she said, if it is to be, it's up to me. And that's a real true statement. If you want your life to change, do something different. Otherwise, it will never change. You'll continually have the same shitty people around you. And if you have any doubts that the people around you are shitty, they are definitely shitty. Any doubts. The people that are awesome, that are in your life, Do your best to monitor your sabotage button, and do not bring that to the relationship. Do not bring that to the table. I know this because I used to bring my sabotage button and sabotage all kinds of stuff. And what's funny is I have people now that they, whether they're jealous or again, they're just disrespectful, and they don't think they're being disrespectful because they only care about themselves and things like that. But a lot of people will then say, well, you're being destructive. I'm like, no, I'm only being destructive to our relationship because you're a piece of shit. That's the only reason why I'm being destructive. So, and I ended up this week having to give a refund to a JL guy, and he doesn't watch my videos too closely because he doesn't realize the reference that I made about JL people. So it was easier just for me to give him a refund. And it was funny because there was several delays. That was back in December. I had a whole bunch of packages I don't want to say stolen, that came up missing. And I rebuilt some subs for him out of the motors that I have here. And it got down to the last minute where I was getting ready to ship them, and all of a sudden he starts talking shit in the comments, and I was like, oh, that's a betrayal. Don't do that. Be patient. It does not pay to be petty. It does not pay to be spiteful. I'm not going to reward revenge or bad behavior. Absolutely not. If you're a piece of garbage, there's a reason why I'm giving you a refund, and I don't want to deal with you ever again, and I'm paying you to go away. And I don't have to do that. I've already been through small claims with several people that are just shitty, and the worst thing that happens is that I have to pay $10 a month to you for several years. That's it. That's the only thing that happens. So again, and I don't like to do that to people. I don't want to have to defend myself that way. I'd rather just be upfront and build trust. And if you have a problem with me, negotiate with something. Don't be demanding. Don't be, you owe me, that kind of thing, because that does not get you the results that you want with me. I'm not the fucking manager at Best Buy. Okay. And it was great. While I was there scamming, there's a Pioneer amplifier. There's actually a series of Pioneer amplifiers that have defects from the factory. They have bad connections at the circuit board, and somebody had brought one in. I had bought it off them or traded them, and I went back to Best Buy and I bought one, and then I just swapped it. And I was just trying to do my business and leave, and somebody came in as a Karen and started yelling and making a stink about, I've never been treated like this, blah, 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 blah. And I watched the manager go, leave. And they got security involved and they made them leave. And it was fantastic. And then that's when I realized, I was like, I need to start doing that. And basically just not putting up with people's stuff, because that behavior is never acceptable. It certainly wouldn't be acceptable in line at the airport for TSA, right? It certainly wouldn't be appropriate like at a restaurant. So why is it appropriate in a retail setting? It's not. It's not. You shouldn't be doing that. And even when I've done it myself, I did this over at, it was called Unique Car Stereo, when there's already a very prestigious, well-run, top-of-the-line stereo store called Unique over in Gilbert. But this guy, I forget his name, David, he was a piece of shit. And then he called Mesa PD, and the guy that made the call on, or that showed up, was a piece of shit too. He was a piece of shit cop. But that guy, David, meth mouth, piece of garbage. I went in there to try to help somebody because they scammed him. They scammed the kid. They sold him like a DC audio level 5, I guess, 15-inch, and it wouldn't fit in his car. And the kid was like, well, why don't we do a trade? I'm like, this is a $600 woofer. Like, I cannot give you $600 worth of my stuff. Like, that would fill your whole car. Like, I'm not trading you. So I was like, well, let's go down there and see what we can do to try to get you something different or whatever like that. And at the time, there was a strike at the port for the dock workers, and Rusty had all of his motors in transit there overseas. So not that that's a big surprise. If you're not getting your steel and your at least the magnetic and metal materials from China, you're wasting everybody's time, because it's yeah. That's the place to get them from. So Rusty still builds all of them here. He has a small team and he does really good work. I still think it's kind of expensive, but that's me and that's my opinion. That's why I don't buy, but that's why I provide you guys with something else as an alternative. But I just thought that was really interesting, the way that the dealer was, and the way that they reacted, and also, you know, what I was doing was actually very inappropriate, and I should not have gone there and tried to do that. And again, it was out of sympathy for somebody that really didn't deserve it. And after we got out of there, and after the cops took us out of cuffs, the kid was not, you know, he's like, this guy's fucking psycho. And I was like, well, I thought I was doing the right thing, and I thought I was there to help you. So, but again, it's never good to get involved, especially like, even though a young, I'll say cute, I thought she was cute, young cute mother with her child is sleeping on your swing, don't feel sorry for her. Don't get involved. It's none of your business. Ask them to leave. Tell them never to come back. And if you can record it on video, that just gives you proof of the incident, and it enables police, if they need to, identify them. So, but that's all I got. I got to get back to work, and then I got to go pick up Sherry, and I got to drop off rent today. I made rent. Thank you to you guys for helping me make rent. It was last week was getting really close. I was like, ugh, this really hurts, but I don't worry about it anymore, because there's, again, don't worry, be happy. Now I got Flavor Flav's lyrics in my head. Don't worry, be happy is my #1 jam. But yeah, don't worry about it. The worst thing that's going to happen in life is you die, and you're going to die anyway. So do rad stuff, help other people, be rad. I love you guys. I will talk to you later.